The black sun rose above the earth. With a crimson light, it illuminated desert landscapes and mountains of skulls piled on the ground. The three-eyed monster, similar to an overgrown worm, whose mouth was studded with huge sharp fangs in 3 rows, let out a wild roar that could knock down a giant. The man stood opposite the monster without moving. He screamed loudly and tightened his grip on his knife, which was his only weapon at that moment. The three-eyed worm and the man locked in a deadly embrace, poisonous saliva dripping from the monster's fangs. The man's fate seemed predetermined. The man blocked the monster's mouth and stuck his hand with a knife deep into its throat. A grimace of disgust and hatred distorted his face. The monster wheezed and gasped, and the man continued to deal fatal blows to him. Finally, it was all over. The worm was destroyed. He fell to the ground, raising piles of dust, and the man sat exhausted next to the body of the monster. He looked with satisfaction at the result of his work and wiped the sweat from his face. I can finally use my power to defeat monsters. This is me, not awakened. Who could believe such a thing? Such thoughts flashed through the man's head. The crimson rays of the black sun illuminated a picture in which various creatures, spawns of hell, attacked the earth, and they were opposed by people, small and weak. But they did not retreat in their determination to defeat the monsters. "What are you doing?" There was a scream towards the man who defeated the worm. It was a tall man shouting, "We hired you as a porter, then you must do your job and collect everything for us. Don't you see the corpses of monsters?" The second hunter supported him. Both of them were very angry. "Do you think we hired you to fool us?" The man changed his face and apologized. "Know your place, motherfucker." With these words, both men left, but he remained and looked after them. The world changed after the discovery of the abyss, another dimension, where monsters that existed only in fantasies lived in reality. After the discovery of the abyss, supernatural forces awakened in people, and thanks to these forces, humanity began to destroy monsters and study and conquer the abyss. Because of all this, in the new dangerous world, someone's evaluation was not based on personality or effort, but on what rank they awakened to. If your awakening rank was high, then you were guaranteed to live a good life. However, all this does not concern me. The man thought sadly, "I am not an awakened person who has never even opened the status window at 35 years old, and I work as a loader who carries the load for the awakened ones. Until I achieve awakening, I will never be able to live the life they lead." Suddenly, a terrible picture appeared before his eyes. The entire space was littered with corpses of people who lay as if death had suddenly overtaken them. "What's happening?" He was surprised and frightened, and then someone's voice was heard. "You were the last one left." A strange, tall, bluish-colored figure with 6 arms with a pale face and a head crowned with huge horns appeared out of nowhere. And the man only hoped that he could escape, but he could not budge. He froze in horror. But is it possible to escape from such a giant? Because in front of him was a SS-rank monster Asmodeus, who was peering at the last person with his red eyes on his mask-like face. Since it was impossible to escape from such a monster, the man made a desperate attempt to attack him with his knife and sell his life dearly. One movement of the long, inhuman fingers was enough for the knife to fall out of the attacker's hands, and the hand itself became numb and lost all sensitivity, as if it had disappeared. A second later, a terrible pain pierced the man, and he fell to the ground screaming while the monster continued to watch him. It was as if time had stopped. Before he had time to rise, the monster directed a stream of light into his head. It stood with its head supporting the sky, and under its feet, the skulls of its victims lay in the ground. The monster and the man stood connected by one stream of energy. The man could not understand what was happening. He felt the approach of death and regretted his aimlessly lived life. Fragments of memories flashed through his memory about how his parents died in a car accident, about how he was bullied at school, and what a miserable life he lived because he was not awakened. All his life he would only be a porter, the terrible, aimless life of a loser. Suddenly, a blue color spread inside his body. He experienced incomparable sensations. He did not know who to pray for help, God or the devil, and everything exploded in his brain with a bright, shining light with the thought, "This is awakening." All conditions for awakening were met. He saw space with billions of stars from where a beautiful figure descended towards him, wrapped in a bright light that filled everything around with its radiance, and he himself stood at the very edge of the stairs leading straight into the sky. The figure was approaching closer and closer. It was woven from the smallest particles of light. Asmodeus lost his confidence. The connection between him and the man disappeared. His figure became more blurred and he froze, unable to move. At this time, the one who came down from heaven and came very close to the person. "Well, are you surprised that someone could stop Asmodeus?" the voice said with a laugh. Who are you? The man asked him. You can call me king, but that's not what you need to worry about. Now I will give you power and might. The man thought that if this creature could stop Asmodeus, then what could it do to him? Defenseless, insignificant, and pathetic. Don't be so distrustful. The king laughed, reading the man's thoughts. I have been watching you for a long time and admired your will, perseverance, and came to the conclusion that I need to choose you. The man was shocked and did not understand why he was the one. I don't understand what's going on, the man complained, and the one who came from space laughed. Just wait patiently for your time. The day will come when you will understand everything, and then we will meet again. My key. This bastard is sleeping again. Voices reached him. Is he really ignoring us completely? We need to wake him up. Someone gave him a resounding slap in the face and he opened his eyes. Good morning. Two laughing guys leaned over him. You only understand when they beat you. He couldn't believe his eyes. Boyo Hiksu, the one who bullied him in high school, is here again. Just now he was in the abyss, and now he's back at school? He did not have time to dodge the slap in the face that the boy gave him again. And then a status window with data appeared before his eyes. Name Kim Taehyung, age 19 years old, rank F. This means he is only 19 years old, and if so, then he is a schoolboy again and everything can start all over again. To the great surprise of the guys who were beating him, he began to laugh loudly. You are crazy. What is wrong with you? His evil classmates could not understand anything. Boyo Hiksu decided to teach him a lesson and was about to give him another slap in the face. But Kim almost knocked him out with one blow to the jaw. Hiksu flew to the end of the corridor, and on his comrades it had the effect of a bomb exploding. They could not understand what was happening and how them to react. But Kim didn't care about their reaction. He was full of delight that he had finally awakened and now all paths were open to him. The tears on my cheeks dried in seconds. But that's not all. One is defeated, but two remain. Boyo Hiksu was lying on the floor, and his comrades were looking at Kim, who had revealed himself to them from an unexpected side. When the first surprise passed, the two of them shouting, Kim Taehyung, non-entity, what are you allowing yourself to do? The two of them attacked the young man to discourage him from resisting. Kim himself wondered where such fighting enthusiasm came from, but he responded to the attacker with strong blows. They did not have time to react to his blows and fell like bowling pins. 35 years old, not awakened all my life, thought Kim. I was training my body. I found out all the information I could get about the abyss and the monsters that inhabit it. Received various skills, even martial arts, boxing, fencing, archery. And now I'm not going to lose to such vile scoundrels who try to bully me at school. He moved quickly. His blows were accurate. He hit the jaws, the body, and each of his blows reached the target. And with each blow he realized that those whom he was so afraid of at school were actually just dust. I think I could go work as a martial arts trainer, Kim thought as he looked at the unconscious guys. At this time, after a deep knockout, Boy Hiksu woke up. At first he couldn't understand what was happening, and didn't believe that Kim Taehyung had done this to him. He began to change before his eyes, to become covered with stone growths. Upon awakening, he became the owner of the stone skin skill, which strengthened his body and gave him additional weapons, stones that fell from him. The stone fist flew straight at Kim's head, but he managed to slip under the attacker's arm, and the blow did not reach its target. Boyo Hiksu decided to strike from above and jumped high, clasping his hands to increase the force of the blow. Kim watched him from below. Hiksu jumped, but Kim was no longer in this place, and the attacker's blow only raised a huge cloud of dust and stones. Kim attacked him from behind, from where Hiksu did not expect an attack, because he was looking for his opponent in front of him. But he had a very developed intuition, and he instantly turned to face Kim and threw his hand forward, hoping that his blow would knock the young man off his feet. From the blows to the stone jaw, Kim felt severe pain in his arm and was numb for a minute from severe pain. He injured his arm and was thrown against the wall due to the momentum of the blow. His stone rival was about to finish off his victim. Kim Taehyung lay bloodied under a pile of stone rubble, could not get up and watched as a huge block of stone moved towards him. Couldn't calculate your strength in a fight? Hiksu laughed as he advanced on Kim. Are you coming to your senses now? You low, unawakened bastard. Who are you trying to compete with? I am 10 times stronger than you. I woke up already strong and you remained a loser. What are you going to do? Run away like you did before? Can't you run away from fear or pain? All the awakened ones had skills and ranks, but Kim could not even rise, although he had already awakened. This bothered him greatly. The F rank that many awakened people received made them almost the same as ordinary people. The C rank was possessed by those who were called masters, but the physical abilities and skills of the awakened ones were constantly growing. Kim remembered that he had a F rank, but his skill was predation. This skill was never known to anyone, and Kim did not know how to use it. Moreover, he was of a lower rank. Therefore, he had no chance against the fighting Hikso, who had a C rank, and who was advancing on him with the inexorability of a bulldozer. For some reason, Kim Taehyung didn't feel like he was losing. It seemed to him that he was being entangled in a blood-red web. He rose in a cloud of thickening blood-red clouds, and his appearance frightened his opponent, who had never seen such a thing before. Can't be, thought Hiksu. Is it really the low Kim Taehyung who has awakened? And what skill did he acquire? Kim Taehyung himself was surprised at his skill as a predator. He felt a magical movement at his will. He felt the power that fills him to his fingertips. I don't know what's going on, Boy shouted to Hicks, but it will all end when I kill this bastard. Kim stood motionless and waited for the attack. He just put his hand forward, and in a scarlet glow, rings of power appeared in which the Hex dived, who hoped to tear his opponent to pieces. But even his stone fist could not penetrate the defense, or even touch the young man's outstretched palm. It was unthinkable. The confrontation lasted several minutes. Boyo Hiksu strained all his strength and tried to get to his victim, but then he felt with horror how his body was changing. Stones were flying off him, falling down and leaving him completely unprotected before the powerful force of his enemy. Schoolchildren in the school corridor went about their business and did not notice the red explosions outside the window, and the strong noise on the roof of one school building, where the battle was raging, and Kim Taehyung stood among the falling stones and looked at his enemy, who lay breathless at his feet. Now he was an ordinary teenager, weak and beaten, and he posed no danger. The predator skill was completed, and as a result of defeating the target, Kim's skill was upgraded to Class E. In addition, he acquired a new skill, Stone Skin, which BA Hex no longer needed. Kim Taehyung entered the school's medical office, carrying 2 injured students, and he left the third at the doorstep because he dragged him all the way. He greeted politely and raised his beaten, blood-stained face, which already showed large bruises. The nurse was horrified and realized that all 4 needed serious examination and treatment. After the end of the battle, all the teenagers ended up in the school clinic. Boy Hiksu was especially injured. He was still unconscious, and there was no talk of recovery yet. The nurse used her healing skills and treated the injuries that Kim received during the fight. Thanks to his skills, they were minor, and he did not need to go to the hospital. Of course, he lied to her about how they were injured simply when they fell down the stairs, and he didn't say a word about the fight. Kim's injuries were minor, and he was completely healthy when he left the school gates. He was very pleased that he had finally taken revenge on Boy Hicks, who had bullied him so much in his previous life. But one problem haunted him, the predator skill, which he felt in himself even now, when he was calmly walking home from school, how it works and how to control it. His rank, which he could not change even after training all his life, changed after one fight. His strength during battle exceeded that of C rank, and as it turned out, he could steal the skills of defeated opponents, which is how he obtained the Stone Skin skill. Why is it that the guy who ordered to call himself a king gave me such a skill and such abilities? Kim had countless questions to which he could not find an answer. But in the end, he decided that he had one more unfinished business. He approached the house in which he had lived for many years, and there he hoped to find out what the predator skill was. This was the house of his adoptive parents, uncle and aunt. After Kim's parents died in a car accident, he stayed with his uncle and his family. Kim entered the house. He knew that his uncle would return late and wanted to search the computer for information about skills similar to his predator. But when he opened the door of the room, he saw a strange group of people, 2 of whom were wearing masks, and one was collecting money scattered on the floor. Kim Taehyung, the youngest of them, the one crawling on the floor, exclaimed in surprise, "Hwang Ji-yeon." Kim was no less surprised. "Why aren't you at school?" The last thing he was ready to see was his cousin. He remembered that this boy always communicated with hooligans, stole money from home, and generally caused a lot of inconvenience to the whole family. "Are you Ji-young's cousin?" asked one of the men in the room. "If you don't want to be beaten, don't interfere in anything. We'll take what we need and leave." The man's name was Hyun Nim. He was the leader of a small gang, and he had his own goals in this apartment. Kim immediately assessed the situation and rushed into the fray. His fist hit his opponent hard in the jaw. No one expected such behavior from quiet cousin Ji-young, so everyone took a fighting stance. "Wait, let's talk," Hyun Nim shouted, but Kim Taehyung did not listen to him. He knocked the enemy to the floor and waited for his predator skill to awaken. Much to Kim's surprise, the predator function was unavailable, and this was an unpleasant surprise for him. He tried again. His opponent looked at him in surprise and did not understand what he was doing. The skill was not activated, and Kim received a strong blow to the jaw from Hyun Nim. He managed to come to his senses and decided to punish this crazy bastard so that he would not interfere in his own business. Now Kim was at the complete mercy of the gang, which possessed the skills of binding, poison, and bleeding, with which they attacked him, and it was impossible to resist these skills. The red chain, green spear, and blue cloud flew straight at Kim, who still could not recover from the strong blow. The whole room was covered in a thick blue fog, behind which Kim disappeared, and the bandits continued to influence him with their own forces. They were outraged by the fact that an unawakened person pretended to be an awakened one, and did not know his place in this world. Skills were fully realized, but to the bandits' great surprise, thanks to a mysterious force, Kim's resistance to their skills was so strong that he was not harmed. Moreover, his stone skin skill was activated, which he had completely forgotten about. The bandits did not understand what was happening, how they could avoid the destructive power of their skills. They were completely confused. Kim Tae-hyung came out of the thick blue fog and hit the bandit leader with his stone hand. He was very confident in himself and his strength, and the blow landed. "So guys," Kim said and looked at the bandits lying on the floor, "you realize that I can do a lot more than you thought." The bandits lay showing no signs of life. They received such a strong blow that now they would not wake up right away. The status window, which can only be seen by the awakened, shows detailed information. Kim Tae-hyung, age 19, rank E, strength 3, endurance 6, speed 5, predator skill can achieve the desired goal. Stone skin can strengthen the body, but not all of this is fully reflected on the display. Before that, Kim had no mana in the status window, but now it appeared. Additionally, the predator skill's passive effect was not mentioned in the skill's description. The passive effect resists and neutralizes skills associated with abnormal conditions such as poisoning or bleeding. Kim thought about how he could use his new skills, but then his cousin fell to his knees and with tears began to ask him to forgive him. Because after Kim turned to him with his strong side, Hwang Ji-young wondered if he was doing the right thing. I always knew, Kim thought, that my cousin was a cunning fox, but who knew that he would go so far? During this time, Ji-young promised to serve his cousin faithfully. Kim Tae-hyung knew from a past life that the main problem now is not Ji-young, but that another incident will happen today, which could be tragic for the residents of this part of the city. "I forgive you," he said, and Ji-young couldn't believe what he heard. "For this, I will need you to come with me and do something," Kim said. Ji-young was ready for anything. In the evening, in one of the closed areas, entry into which was prohibited for everyone except specially trained personnel, an event occurred that horrified everyone who worked there, and people did not know how to resist it. A gate breakthrough occurred, a phenomenon when a path from the abyss opened and monsters appeared. If you leave everything unattended, a disaster will occur in the dungeon, and people will suffer. 10 years had passed since the last dungeon breakout. The gate was closed and the monsters were inside. Judging by the behavior of the monsters, if nothing is done, a disaster in the dungeon will occur in a very short time. People discussed whether everyone living near this place should be evacuated. "There is no need," said the manager, "because my rank B barrier skills work well and will hold back the monsters. In addition, the destruction rank of this gate is only C, and despite the fact that the monsters are already ready to break through the thin line separating them from the human world, any monster that comes out of there will only have a C rank. In other words, even in the event of an unexpected crisis." At this time, a loud scream interrupted Tim the leader's speech. The gates opened and a crowd of terrible monsters rushed out. They were all hungry and angry, and immediately attacked the person who stood in their way. B-rank awakened are more than capable of dealing with such danger. At the same time, Ji-young and Kim ran into the zone, and Ji-young was very afraid, but hoped that everything would be fine, because he had a powerful cousin next to him. Kim told him that the management personnel were already here, and Ji-young did not understand why they urgently needed to get into the zone. "You're right," Kim answered him while running. "The initial mana assessment of this gate breakthrough is C rank. The team leader and staff are B rank, so there will be no problem with C rank monsters. But only if this is really a C rank dungeon and a monstrous mistake has not occurred, which happens once every 20 years. The hall was full of corpses of monsters that were lying everywhere, baring their teeth that could no longer harm anyone. How strange, the team leader thought. These low-rank monsters broke through my barrier B. This can't be true. Is the mana here higher than my rank? At this time, his assistants felt some kind of presence inside the gate and it greatly frightened them. Something terrible was bursting out. These were thousands of monsters trying to break into their world. The assistants froze in place with fear. People froze in a daze and could not believe their eyes. because what they saw could not exist. A huge toothy mouth, into which a person could easily fit without bending, opened, showing huge fangs, and growled. Smaller but no less dangerous monsters ran in front of a huge ogre, who walked, sweeping away everything in his path, leaving a bloody trail behind him, and it was impossible to resist him. He would trample any person and not notice it. It was a giant A-rank ogre, a monster whose monster no one had ever been able to defeat. The team leader guessed that a mistake had occurred and this place was mistakenly given the name Tease. The situation became critical. A decision had to be made urgently. The entire room was filled with fiery whirlwinds that hid both people and monsters. The brothers ran through the zone, hoping to make it in time, but Ji-young still couldn't understand how his cousin knew about what was about to happen. Kim thought that he remembered this from a past life, and that due to a mistake, the evacuation order was not given, which led to tragic consequences. But out loud, he said that he simply had developed intuition. "My intuition tells me," Kim continued, "that you lie to me very often, but now I hope that you will carry out my instructions honestly." At this time, they came across a large group of people. They were fleeing from monstrous monsters who were catching up with them in order to have a tasty lunch. "This is a gate breach," people shouted. "Save yourself, otherwise you will all die." "Do you remember what I told you to do?" Kim turned to his cousin. "So do it, and I will get rid of these bastards." Kim activated his stone skin skill and went out to meet the monsters running out of the zone. In the penthouse on the top floor of a skyscraper, an important conversation was taking place. A man looked out the window and said, "As you said, the situation is developing quickly. The breakthrough of the gate, which was considered a C rank, turned out to be an A rank. No reinforcements are possible because everyone is busy with other gates, and it will take a long time to get here. Now the only solution to the crisis is an awakened rank. You are our only hope. Save us," he addressed his interlocutor. Blade of Madness and Kensu awakened a rank. With the skill of an 8th grader syndrome, he was ready to come to the rescue. In the gate breakthrough area, there was a battle with monsters that had broken into the main hall. There was everyone here: orcs, goblins, werewolves, all with long claws, sharp teeth, and poisonous thorns. But the worst of all were the ogres. Kim Taehyung skillfully used his stone skin skill, and his fist dealt powerful blows to the ogres. They scattered in different directions, but got up and went on the attack again, because they had few brains, but a lot of anger and hatred. Kim turned on his predator skill, which suddenly started working, and he was enveloped in a red glow. The power of his blow increased greatly. Kim began to understand that the predator skill turns off when very tired, and now his fatigue was only 52%. If it increased to 70%, the skill would turn off again. Most skills are activated based on the use of mana, but this does not mean that you only need to care about mana. Much depends on fatigue, which increases if a person uses skills or engages in physical activity, and the higher the fatigue, the more the strength of the skill decreases and the physical body becomes heavier. There is something to think about, but Kim realized that if you stop the target's vital activity, in other words, kill a monster, mana will not be consumed. Therefore, the more monsters he kills, the more mana is restored, and the predator skill is stronger. The system window informed him that his rank had been raised to level D, and he realized that the more he used the predator, the higher his rank grew. At this rate of growth, he could become C rank or even SS rank, and maybe even become the first SSS rank. The guy dreamed. Kim looked around the room, which contained nothing but the remains of monsters and bloodstains, and decided that he could leave. But then another monster jumped out of the gate and was attacked by a new monster hunter. "Damn monster, I will make you pay for the souls of the people you killed," he shouted and waved a large glowing sword. "I am a warrior of justice in Hensu. I will judge you and not one of you will escape my wrath." Kim watched the fight, which became stronger and stronger. The young man flew near the monster and struck him with blows, while dodging the blows with a huge fist that the monster tried to inflict on him. His sword burned with golden fire, and this fire blinded with its bright radiance. A huge column of light rushed to the heavens from the place where the battle took place. Kim saw how easily An Hyunsu defeated a monster of rank, and then decided that this man immediately awakened as a high-rank fighter, and in a past life, he himself could deal with this breakthrough of the gate. Blade of Madness, and Hyunsu, in a past life Kim Tae-hyung heard about him as a very strong and invincible fighter. But he couldn't even dream of ever meeting him. "The disgusting monster died from my sword of justice." An Hyunsu laughed, and Kim remembered that there were rumors that this hero was not only strong, but also not very smart. Why did he appear here at this time? Kim Tae-hyung thought. Before I regressed in my past life, I know that he had a bloody battle with a giant ogre on the other side of the city. Citizens, continued An Hyun-soo, I hope that you are in peace and tranquility. Kim Tae-hyung sensed something was wrong. Some vague doubts flashed through his head, but he didn't have time to do anything. How a strange man appeared behind In Jenso, who stabbed him with a knife, and blood sprayed from the fighter's mouth. I got you, An Hyun-soo. An ominous grin lit up the face of the unknown villain. In one of the school's classrooms, a nurse was fast asleep on the sofa, and Kim's cousin Jeong stood nearby. He recalled how Kim told him that many people would die today, and one of the dead would be school nurse Choi Nayoung. She will refuse evacuation to help people, and monsters will find her and kill her when she saves children from under the rubble of houses. You must use your sleep skill. Put her to sleep and move her to a safe place. Kim Tae-hyung gave this task to his cousin Jeong. How does Kim know everything? Jeong was surprised. Is he? No, it can't be, it's incredible. But still he can foresee everything. Had he awakened with the ability to see the future? This is crazy. This cannot happen, but if it exists, then this is a very strong skill that will be in demand. And Jian was proud of his cousin's skill. Kim Tae-hyung continued to watch how events unfolded at the gate. Something went wrong, and Hensu clearly did not expect such a continuation of events. Who are you? He shouted, turning to his attacker. Reveal your personality, he demanded. He was very worried about the wound he received. It was bleeding heavily. The man laughed evilly and said, You're alive even after such a serious injury. In the end, the ranks are really different, and you are one of the strongest representatives of this rank. Then it will be a fun hunt. He continued the conversation, and Hensu was challenged by the B-rank fighter, the villain Han Sando, whose main skill was stealth. Some called upon the awakened ones who committed crimes, the so-called villains, and Kan Sando was one of them. A murderous maniac who committed murders for his own pleasure. But Kim recalled that the two never met until he regressed. Did he really change the future? And what will happen to the whole world and all the people now? And Hyun-soo also recognized the one who inflicted a serious wound on him. He couldn't believe his eyes, and promised to kill him with his own hands. He drew his sword and rushed at the enemy, who stood calmly and waited for an attack. The entire battle took place on the body of an ogre monster, which had recently been destroyed by an Hensu, and suddenly this body shuddered, horrifying both fighters. The huge monster opened all four of its eyes and tried to stand up, causing the people who were standing on its body to almost fall. The giant ogre roared so loudly that the sound wave knocked people off their feet. What wonderful regenerative abilities, said the villain Han Sando in flight. What else can you expect from a monster? The ogre started hunting for both people, and his giant fist punched a huge hole in the floor. There's nothing to do here, Kan Sando thought. Let this giant monster deal with an Hensu on its own. In any case, I will win. And he prepared to run away from the battlefield, leaving the seriously wounded An Hyun-soo to fight and die. But Kim Tae-hyung stood in his way. The news that someone else had seen this whole scene did not make the villain Han Sando happy. He decided to kill the witness, and the more loot the better, and the more pleasure the bloody killer will get. He drew his sword, and was already anticipating the pleasure that he would receive from the victim's fear, from his attempts to escape, from the fact that these attempts would be pointless. The second sword was clutched in his other hand, and was preparing to deliver the decisive blow. But the blade hit the stone skin, and did not cause the slightest harm to Kim, who called the attacker a moron. With a slight movement of his foot, he dealt a strong blow to the villain, and blood sprayed out of his mouth along with his teeth. So you are awakened, Han Sando shouted, but he was not going to refuse to kill this impudent man. A madman who commits murder and uses the skill of stealth. Is that you? Asked Kim mockingly. I've heard about you. It's nice to meet you. With these words, Kim put stone armor on his hand. The blades of the sword sparkled in the rays of the moon, and a crazy smile appeared on the villain's face. But every time the sharply sharpened swords clanged against the stones that protected Kim's hands, and the killer could not find a single point on his body that he could pierce with a sword. Your defense is too good, Kan Sando hissed angrily. Who knew that sharp blades would be useless to you? Kim replied, and took a defensive stance. I don't know how you know me, Han Sando continued, but you are apparently confident that you have a chance of victory because my attacks on you fail. In the background there was already a fierce battle between Ankenso and the revived ogre, but the fighters did not even pay attention to it. But you see, baby, the villain continued, you should know that the world does not always correspond to your plans. And he used his stealth skill, and where he stood suddenly an empty space appeared. Kim understood that his enemy had not escaped, but he needed to wait for an attack from the most unexpected place. Therefore he decided to strike first where he thought his opponent was. However, the villain Han Sando appeared behind him, which greatly surprised Kim. This time the blade touched Kim's hand, and despite the stone armor, blood gushed from the wound. Kim couldn't believe that his armor couldn't resist the villain's sword, and why it suddenly became so weak. "You don't even know how many guys I killed when I hunted them." Han Sando continued his attack. "Those who thought their skills were invincible, but as soon as your weakness is discovered, you simply collapse and die, and you have no way to escape. You better understand this before I kill you. All abilities are weakness." Sharp blades flew in front of Kim, inflicting more and more wounds on him, and the villain turned out to be elusive and appeared in the most unexpected places. Who knew that stone skin had such a drawback, thought the young man, exhausted from fatigue and loss of blood. The stone skill did not completely block attacks. Constant strong blows would crush the stone, and the crushed part would be replaced by the formation of stone of significantly less density. He strove for this from the very beginning. He knew about the shortcomings of my strength, and he just played with me like a cat with a mouse. Kim Tae-hyung thought with horror and began to decide how to avoid such a ridiculous measure and what else he had in his arsenal to fight such an unpredictable enemy. As Kim expected, hand-to-hand combat is still possible, even with a B-rank opponent since his abilities have increased. "Come on, let's try to fight again," he suggested to the villain, and he burst out laughing. "Did you go crazy after being backed into a corner?" "B-rank villain Han Sango, do you know why I wanted to meet you?" asked Kim. "What are you yapping about?" The striker, confident in his victory, did not understand him. "Because I wanted to take away your skills." Kim Tae-hyung turned on the Predator skill and was enveloped in a familiar crimson glow, which forced the villain to stop in place in indecision in order to understand what he should expect from the new ability of this boy, whom he had already killed in his dreams. This bastard has been hiding all this time such a dark power that he has. I wish I could understand what the effect of this skill is, thought Han Sango, not daring to approach Kim. Some kind of plan matured in his head, and he smiled predatorily, thinking that his opponent was an idiot. "You think you can kill me with your unknown skill when you don't even know where I am?" "You yourself just said that every skill is a weakness," Kim answered him. "I realized this after I killed the monsters. Among these monsters, countless escaped my sight, but ultimately the predator devoured them all. Simply put, where you hide, where you run, the predator will get you no matter what." Kim Tae-hyung turned on his ability at full power and was no longer interested in the fact that razor-sharp blades were flashing near his head. The predator was ready to hunt its prey. Dawn had already begun, and Hyunsu was lying among a pile of stones, completely exhausted, and a nightmare ogre was already approaching him with the intention of delivering a decisive blow. He thought that if the villain Han Sango had not dealt him a vile blow, he would have quickly dealt with this monster. But now he is close to death, and is not able to make a single move to save himself. The ogre swung his fist and opened his mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. Now he will kill this man, tear him to shreds and eat him. But there was no one at the site of the impact. His little brain couldn't figure out where this man, who seemed such an easy prey, could have gone. "Have you lost anything?" A scream was heard behind the ogre. The monster turned around and saw a standing man who was holding the rescued Hensu by the collar. Using the stealth skill when hunting ogres is very convenient, Kim thought as he removed Hyunsu from under the ogre's fist. In the morning, Uncle and Aunt Kim were very happy when they opened the door and saw a guest on their doorstep. "Mom, Dad, I'm home, look who I brought," their son Jeong shouted. "My God, we were so afraid that the monsters would destroy you." Our parents burst into tears. "No, everything went well," Kim and Jeong said in one voice, and the parents complained that they were not doing well because someone had made a big mess in their house. Jeong really hoped that Kim would not tell why such a mess happened. The latest news reported what happened to the biggest breakthrough in the last 10 years. In accordance with government guidelines, the announcer read, "The danger warning has now been completely lifted. But given the possibility of a subsequent outbreak, the government ordered nearby schools to close for a week. News about survivors gradually comes, and citizens breathe a sigh of relief. And everyone who was on duty at the gate at that time was placed in the hospital and is receiving qualified medical care. Dear fellow citizens," An Hyunsu shouted at the press conference, "it wasn't me who killed the giant ogre. The real hero is still unknown. However," the news announcer continued, "since the body of the giant ogre has not been found, and where the villain Han Sango is hiding is also unknown, people are concerned that preventive measures for security purposes may not be sufficient." Kim was very glad that the news did not mention a word about him. He needed to move on to the next stage, and he stopped at a very gloomy tunnel. His new data appeared on the display window. Kim Tae-hyung, rank D, strength 15, endurance 20, speed 15, mana 40, skills predation can achieve the desired goal. Stone skin can strengthen the body, Invisibility can hide the body, and so he has 3 skills. Gaining invisibility was a particularly great result, but at his current level, it was too difficult for him to use all 3 skills. Since constantly using skills can change his mana instantly, thereby increasing his fatigue level, and this can be destructive for him. The best preventive measure against this potion. Potions are elixir, and created for various purposes such as mana or restoring health, but they are quite expensive. Therefore, you need to hunt to earn a lot of money, Kim thought as he entered the tunnel. You must have a legal permit to hunt, because using skills without permission is considered illegal completely. There is only one option left, to explore unknown dungeons that may contain unfamiliar monsters and unknown dangers. The monsters were also unhappy that some stranger had invaded them. How dare a mere mortal come here? How did he find us? Let's paralyze him and have a party. Kim was amazed that he had found a dungeon with monsters with very high intelligence and the ability to speak. These were sister spiders of rank B, and he thought that the rank was not high enough so that after the victory his rank would change. He would have to destroy these monsters by the hundreds. How dare you, arrogant low person, come to us? Do you realize the situation you find yourself in? We will eat you alive. And the spiders began to release purple webs that were aimed directly at Kim. How are you feeling now? They laughed. Do you feel that you can no longer move? But their fun quickly ended when they realized that thanks to the mysterious power, a person successfully resists their poisons. As I thought, Kim told the spiders, you have a very useful skill. A red glow enveloped the faces of the spiders, who recoiled from it in fear. The sounds of struggle were heard from the tunnel, which quickly died down, and the system window informed Kim that he had succeeded in his predator skill comma and acquired a new skill paralysis. In a huge skyscraper was the headquarters of the new South Korean Players Association. 2 guards stood at the entrance, and above the large door was a mural of 2 dragons. People gathered in the conference room to discuss the current situation. The 2 best players of the new South Korean Players Association are Deputy Personnel Manager Go Taeyuk, an awakened player who is allowed to legally use their skills for various purposes, such as exploration without clearing a dungeon and more. Currently, there are 5 gaming centers in the new South Korea Players Association. The largest guilds in South Korea are the 4 great guilds. Fighters who are not divided are warriors who rely on their strength. Artisan alchemists who rely on the powers of potions and chemical compounds. Magicians are wizards who achieve their goals through witchcraft. And night travel that excelled at gathering information. And the authorized agency that manages the players, including the Great 4 Guilds. And right in front of me is the chairman of the Night Travelers Guild, and as wrong player Yu Ayen. Thank you for coming. I know that you are all busy, said the chairman of the new South Korean Players Association, as wrong player Ji Jinwi. Did you discover something? Did you find out anything about the Evil Guild? Asked Yu. The Evil Guild is a criminal organization, created by the most brutal criminals even among the villains. Members of the guild wear gold rings with images of 3 skulls. Here are the latest movements of the Evil Guild, along with a list of players they hunted. Well, I'm sure that you called me not only because I received the document in person. What happened? Do you know what this is? Ji asked Jinvi show her the paper. I would like to know your opinion about this. Miss Aeon, when did you take the player test? Of course, when I turned 19, Jinwi smiled. Can a high school student compete with a monster in battle? In the Cave of Spiders, Kim collected a huge amount of treasure and decided to visit the Alchemists' Guild. But at the beginning, he decided to call there to find out if it made sense for him to come. I want to buy potions from you, he said, and piles of treasures were piled at his feet.